Okay, I'm going to adjust this a little bit so you can look at our nice cover. The next section we're going to cover in human resource management, gaining a competitive advantage. In chapter 5, the next topic will be downsizing, like I mentioned in the previous video. We define downsizing as the planned elimination of large numbers of personnel designed to enhance organizational effectiveness. As Table 5.2 indicates, as a meaning of reducing a labor surplus, downsizing is high in human suffering but fast, and due to lack of planning or the impossibility of planning for certain events, companies often have to resort to this tactic. I note time was this clearer than during the COVID-19 pandemic, when job losses in the U.S. were the highest experienced since 1939. In 2020 alone, the U.S. economy shed over 9 million jobs. The losses were most heavy in the leisure and hospitality industries, whose business models were decimated. However, it spilled over into the transportation industry, where slack demand for gasoline and jet fuel grounded oil companies as well as airlines. As companies shut down, they also took down consulting and business support providers, since there was little in the way to support some operations. All of this occurred despite national efforts to support employer payroll through loans and grants. Although one tends to think of downsizing as something that a company turns to in times of recession or when facing bouts of poor performance, in fact, many companies are doing quite well still downsize their workforce regularly for strategic reasons. For example, although Microsoft was doing fine in 2014, it still laid off 18,000 workers in the phone and tablet division after the purchase of Nokia left the company with a surplus of workers in those areas. Continued text. Similarly, Hewlett-Packard cut 16,000 jobs that same year and used the roughly $1 billion in savings to invest more heavily in cloud computing services. Surveys indicate 3 major reasons that organizations engage in downsizing. First, many organizations are looking to reduce costs, and because labor costs represent a big part of a company's total cost, this is an attractive place to start. An example of this could be seen in 2017 as Boeing announced plans to downsize to cut costs. John Hamilton, the company's vice president of engineering, noted, "We continue to operate in an environment characterized by fewer sale opportunities and tough competition, and the decision to reduce the number of 177 jets underscores that environment and what we need to do to help Boeing win." This is a clear example of projections of reduced sales triggering cost-cutting downsizing moves. This decision then trickled down to GE, which provides jet engines for Boeing, as GE also reduced their own headcount by over 75,000 employees. For example, Boston Dynamics created an incredibly light dog named Spot that can move with efficiency through rugged terrain, visualize space, and send pictures to remote human workers. The robot dog has been employed in a number of different industries. For example, Spot now performs dangerous power plant inspections of pipes. He monitors toxic thermal exhaust at a garbage treatment facility. He surveys construction work sites and even does temperature checks of COVID patients at a Massachusetts hospital. The company is also developing a robot named Handle that can move boxes and load trucks in a way that will revolutionize the demand for labor in warehouse. As the Competing Through Technology box shows, the usage of the robot was giving a boost during the COVID pandemic. Okay, so this next little section is Competing Through Technology. I'm going to briefly take a quick little interlude and review it. All right. Although not employing robots per se, General Electric's new battery manufacturing plant in Schenectady, New York shows how new technology can produce jobs. The entire 200,000 square foot facility requires only 370 workers, only 200 of which are actually on the shop floor. The plant manager runs the entire operation, including lights, heat, inventory purchasing, and maintenance from an iPad that is linked to wireless sensors embedded in the batteries themselves. Third, many firms downsize for economic reasons by changing the location where they do business. Some of this shift was from one region of the United States to another. In particular, many organizations moved from the Northeast, the Midwest, and California to the South and the mountain regions of the West. There has also been a shift away from expensive urban areas such as Boston, San Francisco, and Silicon Valley to smaller cities such as Boise, Denver, and Austin. This ongoing trend was accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic when it became clear that many workers could efficiently work from remote locations. This creates a win-win solution for employers who can pay slightly lower wages and employees who can afford a slightly better lifestyle, even on those adjusted salaries relative to trying to make ends meet in high-cost locals. Although downsizing has an immediate effect on costs, much of the evidence suggests that its negative effects on long-term organizational effectiveness, especially for some type of firms. Thus, it is important to understand what goes into an effective versus an ineffective downsizing campaign. There seem to be a number of reasons for the failure of most downsizing efforts to live up to the expectations in terms of enhancing firm performance. First, although the initial cost savings are short-term plus, the long-term effects of an improperly managed downsizing effort can be negative. The permanent loss of talent is difficult to ramp back up quickly and create an inability to respond to changing circumstances. For example, many feel that cuts into the public health sector of the economy and at hospitals left the U.S. in poorer position to respond quickly to the COVID-19 pandemic. Even throwing huge amounts of money at the problem was no solution because, as one industry expert noted, we can't manufacture nurses and doctors in the same way we can manufacture ventilators. Second, many downsizing campaigns let go of people who turn out to be irreplaceable assets. In fact, one survey indicated that in 80% the cases, firms wind up replacing some of the very people who were let go. In other cases, firms bring back the specific people who were let go, often at a higher salary. In fact, the term boomerang employee has been coined to refer to this increasingly used source of recruits. Research on such rehires suggests that boomerang employees are a low-risk option in cases where their performance was acceptable in the past. That seems to stay consistent. Additionally, boomerang employees who leave for relatively positive or neutral reasons initially outperformed internal or external hires. But this initial advantage does not last. Finally, boomerang employees do not appear to return with higher levels of organizational commitment. In fact, they turned over at twice the rate than other types of employees. The third reason downsizing efforts often fail is that employees who survive the purge often become narrow-minded, self-absorbed, and low in organizational commitment. Motivation levels drop off because any hope of future promotions or even a future with the company dies out. Many employees also start looking for alternative employment opportunities. The negative publicity associated with the downsizing campaign can also hurt the company's image in the labor market, making it more difficult to recruit employees later, especially in the age of text messaging and social media. The once private practice of laying off employees is becoming increasingly transparent, and any organizational mistake that gets made in the process is likely to become highly public. The key to a successful downsizing effort is to avoid indiscriminate across-the-board reductions and instead perform surgical, strategical cuts that not only reduce costs but also improve the firm's competitive position. For example, at the State University of New York, $50 million was saved across the system via a series of cuts that consolidated many senior administrative positions. The same practice cut $70 million at the University of California at Berkeley and $5 million at the University of Kansas. These cuts were specifically targeted at administrative bloat, revealed by research that showed that the number of employees hired by colleges to administer people and programs rose 50% faster than the number of professors in the preceding 12 years. The size of the instructional and research staff was left as is, and the evidence suggests that students' outcomes were not affected at such cost. So that is our conclusion for downsizing. So I will move on to the next section shortly. The next topic will be outsourcing and offshoring.